All right, let's get this party started. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Monday, April 27th. Um, let's see what we got going on this morning. Markets have not retreated very far from where we finished last week. Markets closed up around a little above 190, and so we're just slightly below that. News flow, not all that positive. So for the markets to be staying up at these levels, kind of surprising. I need to change what I'm listening to. So if we take a look at the TPO charts from last week and talk about real quick what we saw last week and what we were expecting last week and what has started to happen, is that we had balance around 150 to 160. The market tested lower twice last week, failed to find balance. And then now we're starting to do the price discovery move higher. So what you're looking for is, if you're a bull in all of this, is that the markets will drift higher and find balance somewhere probably above 200. Now we did find some balance on Friday afternoon, kind of essentially afternoon, with 180 being kind of the floor and 200 being kind of the ceiling of that balanced range. I would suspect that if we are right and the market is engaging in a price discovery move, that 180 would serve as support for the remainder of this week. So that's going to be kind of a key level that we're going to be mindful of. But again, it is Monday. We don't want to get ahead of ourselves. We want to let the markets uh, test some ranges, create some ranges. There's no economic news releases planned for this morning. So institutions are not going to be jumping in with size, I don't believe, this morning. No news on the Iran negotiations. So there's a lot of flux this week. It's Monday, let's just not get too crazy too early in the day. So let's see what happens. We'll see where the flow kind of takes us today. I mean, ideally, what my longer term thesis is to buy dips into 180 that find support, right? If we get test down to 180 that quickly get rejected, volume comes in and lifts price. That's what we'll be looking for to trade, I think, for today. And then depending on what kind of range we get today, that will dictate what we do for the remainder of the week. So let's see where some of the absorption comes in. Let's see where some of the ranges come in. You're already getting pretty big signs of seller diversions up here or in the high 180s. Imbalance was negative 100 million on S&Ps at the open. Doesn't seem to have had much of an impact. We're kind of right at where we opened here at 186. I got to imagine the market is going to be in a pretty tight range this morning. I don't suspect that you're going to start trending or have a very significant opening drive due to the fact that it is Monday. We don't have any major economic news releases. There's a lot of flux with Iran, but I do think somewhere in the 180s, you find support, maybe as low as 170. So 180 to 170 is kind of a support zone based off what transpired last week, but let's just kind of take it easy. It's Monday. I don't want to trade with huge size unless I'm very confident with what the market is offering. And we got to keep our eye on the news, obviously, because a lot of these market moves are dictated by the news flow. So you're getting a good amount of volume being built up here. 192. We did test lower into 183. Quickly rejected it. Now you're finding some volume up at 193. Already broke the absorption here, down in the high 180s. We found sellers yesterday around 3 o'clock up at 200. So we'll see if they're still present today. I don't really want to play much into these pre-market ranges. This is pretty low volume. First volume in the first minute of S&Ps 11,000, which is pretty low, right? And that's kind of be expected for it being a Monday. No economic news releases. Institutions are going to be a little testing the waters and see what kind of reactions that they get. So way too early right now to start thinking about any sort of positions or any sort of trades unless we do that 180 move that I was talking about. And I think 184 was just too high and it's too early. And so perhaps we get a move down into the 180s later in this morning that we can take a trade from. But I no short bias, no real long bias other than down the 170s to 180s to be long. That's really all I'm working with at the moment. Keeping kind of an open mind here this morning. We've already broke some pretty heavy seller absorption. This is pretty big print, 360 contracts. I got absorbed. Resistance to this 192 low volume area. Yeah, potentially we make a push now into 200 and see what's up there. The market's already ready to test it. It appears good volume development here. I mean, we're already developed more volume here than we did at the open. Resisting the low volume area in between. Some pretty good bullish structure. Volume that comes in is still lifting price. But I want to kind of let the market develop some ranges during the cash session. I don't really want to rely on ranges from last week and ranges from overnight activity. I want this market to develop new, fresh ranges based off the US participation. And you're not quickly rejecting the highs. Yeah, you had a little bit of a quick rejection here, but you're kind of hanging out here. The volume is still coming in at the POC for the most part is lifting price. So if you're bullish, you're going to hope that you see a lot of volume come in here and then lift price. You don't want the volume to stay up here at the POC. You want volume to come in now here and lift price back up. And you didn't really get that. And then it just happened right there. So overall, we're getting some bullish overtones with the order flow this morning. Sellers were absorbing, they got broke. Now you have buyers absorbing at the same level on the other side. Volume, for the most part, is supporting price at this new developed POC. You have a now large transaction at 194 and 3/4. So right here, there was a buy. So market's already trying to work higher. Pretty bullish order flow at the moment. I mean, this was a pretty quick rejection. We did not spend a lot of time down here in this low volume area. Let's see if the theme continues here where volume comes in and lifts you back up towards this higher point of control. Yeah, I mean, wow. Wow. You know, like you already want to engage here a little bit. All right, this is pretty strong flow, and we're really heavily resisting this. You get the feeling that the market really wants to work higher. I mean, I like it at 193. Quarter position because I'd rather be down here. I don't want to chase it towards the highs of this distribution shape. But I mean, all in terms of the flow, everything seems pretty bullish other than this little move right here. But all the volume that's coming in here in this distribution seems to be bullish. I don't think you get filled at 193 now. And this seems to be more of just a purely order flow trade because I really don't like the level at which we're at. The fact that we're Monday But the fact that we quickly resist this low volume area, the volume comes in, lifts price. All the volume that's coming in around the POC continues to lift the price. Absorption has been broken here, and then we absorbed on the other side. And it's a pretty well defined low volume area. So I'll leave the limit at 193 and a quarter position. It's just we're now kind of quickly rejecting up here too. But I mean, we're hanging out here, right? This was a much quicker rejection than up here. You're still hanging out here. Nothing outside 194.75. So this is the last large transaction. It's the only one that's happened after the US Open. Yeah, you get the feeling the market wants to just already try to push higher. Buyer absorption's coming in higher and higher. Volume continues to lift price. Yeah, cancel the 193 limit. It's not going to get back down there right now. But we're still very early into the week, very early into the Monday trading session. I want to be super aggressive just right off the bat. I want to wait for a good opportunity and then try to load up. I don't really want to be chasing this market higher and higher if I can avoid it. Make sure we have the news open. No major economic releases this morning. Doesn't seem to be any large news releases this morning. Verizon had earnings this morning. Trump is going to meet the king. So pretty slow news day, looks like so far. See if anything happens in Iran to shake up the markets. But so you had this range here. I would like for you to extend this range farther up and then potentially come back and do a retest of this range here. Right, come back and retest the POC and fail to reclaim this POC. It's aggressive. It's aggressive buys. 193s, 192s are better. But if we can't get it, then maybe 195 is the best we can do. But, you know, again, and because it's Monday, I just don't think this is going to be like a huge like range trend breakout type deal today. I think we just have to be a little patient and not expect the markets just to break today. I don't think they're going to break today. I think we might slowly grind higher to test the waters a little bit based off what we saw last week and what we're kind of thinking in terms of auction theory. But to think that institutions would trend the market today, take large positions in large size before any economic news releases without any clarity on Iran, I don't see it. Doesn't mean it can't happen. So we'll let order flow kind of help us along here. Because we're getting what we talked about, buyer absorption here now at 195, failure to reclaim this higher POC, right? Is that a launch-in point for a trend? On most days, if this was like a Tuesday after an economic news release, I'm absolutely probably long here with at least a quarter position on the potential that you do break and you do trend. But because it is Monday, and I hate to be constrained by a shape of a distribution and being predictive about what a distribution shape is going to look like for the day, but Mondays, it tends to be a balanced, non-trend type of day. Unless you get some major news release. All right, there's the last buyer up here was 94.75 right here. So they're trying to hold that level. All right, we're failing to reclaim this range. We test down, do find volume. Let's see if you quickly now reject out of this range again. Or if you now fall back into this range. Right? Now it'll be pretty telling because now if you fall back into this range, fail to get back out, are now underneath where the buyers were absorbing. that points to a balanced day because you broke the seller absorption here, found buyer absorption here. Now you found buyer absorption higher, and now it was broken by sellers. And the volume came in and suppressed price. Volume came in here, suppressed price. Volume came in here, suppressed price. So you failed to hold to stay out of this range. All right. And the volume that came in just held you right back in the middle of this range. So I definitely don't think this is the trend breakout that you're looking for. Maybe if we come down into 190s, get a quick rejection. Play a scalp to the top of the range, perhaps. But I mean, ideally, I would. And now you have the seller absorption below the buyer absorption, right? So the flow is shifting a little bit. The volume that's coming in is suppressing price. They tried to hold it, but then they just gave up. And right there, the volume came in and held price down at 196. So if you come down here, maybe make a test below these lows, swing lows right here in the 190s, and it quickly gets rejected on some volume, you might want to scalp it. But the fact that we came below this buyer absorption here, we have now seller absorption. All right, we might run the lows now, to be quite honest, because this is a pretty big flip here, right? You're now back at the POC, and it seems all the volume that's coming in at this POC is now selling. Like the most it's doing is holding price. It's not lifting price. And that's what it was doing here. It was lifting price earlier. So you might just break this now. I don't want to trade it though, because we could just get chop around the POC. Like it might come down here, resist this, and then just come back to the POC, test a little higher, resist this, come back down towards the POC. Right, I'm more interested in the range scalp trade today for Mondays than I am anything else. And when you fade POCs, right where most of the volume is transacting, that's more of a like imbalance continuation type deal. I don't think that's the trade type that matches for today. So let's see what happens in this low volume area. If you quickly reject this, a lot of volume comes in, or if it holds price down. Yeah, it's just holding price down. You didn't get a quick rejection. So potentially you're going to test these lows here at 180, which is a better area for me to potentially think about longs. Anyway, we talked about this at the open this morning, that the 180 area down to 170, the top of last week's range, on top of balance between 160 and 150, would probably be a better place to find a long. Now, if we are going to make a test of these 180s lows, I would imagine the market's going to be resistant to these 190 swing lows. Right, you're going to struggle to get above 190, 191 back into value, and then you'll make a test down at the lows. And you just couldn't get outside of value here, but the value range had just shifted. So let's see if it resists getting back into value. My overall thesis remains, I think, more bullish than bearish. So I'd rather kind of look to take longs than I would to take shorts today. Just because I think the price discovery mode will drift higher looking for balance. And we might come back and test the prior week's range down at 180. So there you go. Quick breakdown. Volume came in, lift price, no large transactions. Still the one buyer at 194 3/4. But a good amount of volume coming in at these lows. All right, this is the area we speculated that potentially we could start getting long, 180 to 170. That's a lot of volume that came in and lift price. That's a pretty quick rejection of those lows. All right, staying above all the volume. All right, so I'll put a little piece on a 185 because we're staying above the volume. We're in an area that I really liked price. Put stop pretty far off here just because we just built a quarter position. I just really like where the volume came in at, that we resisted. It quickly rejected this. This is the area that we were referring to earlier, about 180 to 170. It could potentially test lower. All right, but if we get another quick rejection, let's see what happens. So just a quarter piece. Make sure that we're not fighting any news flow. So stop is down at 176, quarter position. Wide stop at the moment because potentially we can test lower. But I do like that the volume that's coming in here is kind of holding up price. I mean, my ideal scenario now is that we come back into value, do not resist 190, fill this in, try to get back outside of value. We add to the position and go for the highs of 198 on a scalp type trade. That's the ideal scenario. If we get down here and we start adding volume and price can't stay above that volume that comes in down here, then we'll look to get out on a swing rotation and potentially add longs lower if the market gives us what we're looking for. But the volume coming in at 184 is holding down price. So let's see if we get volume to come down here in the 180s and what it does to price. Does it lift it? Or does it push it down? There's all the volume that's coming in is coming in at 185, right where entry is. So if a lot of volume comes in here and we can't get above it, I want to limit it and get out on a rotation if we can. If market doesn't stay above this. So just give it a little wiggle. Give it a little wiggle. I mean, you want it to snap out of here. You don't want this rotations down here. You want to quickly snap out of here. Like you're already spending a little too much time for my liking, but that's better. Better. I'm not going to add just yet. Not yet. I like that. That was constructive. The bullish absorption. You tried to quickly reject. I mean, this wasn't the quickest rejection, but the volume that came in did lift price. So now it's going to try it again. Let's see what happens here if we just now break these people here. Because all the volume that's coming down here at 182 is lifting price at the moment. So let's see if it continues to do that. Yeah, that's pretty nice. All right, I'm going to add. Do 179 on the first stop. Yeah. 179 and 176, half position. 2 quarter position exits. I'm looking for a move back up towards this POC now, at least, or at least back into value. We are kind of hanging outside of value here, not quickly getting back inside. But this volume that's coming in here is lifting price. We're in an area that I thought would be kind of bullish support, 180 to 170. But I want price to start moving up now and get back into value. I don't want to be hanging out here outside of value. And we'll see what happens once we get back up to value. What we start doing with stops. Like if you get heavy resistance here, a lot of volume comes in and pushes you back out. All right, so I don't suspect you're going to come back out of value now, right? You should be resistant to 184, 185. You should be resistant to this pocket right here. So I'm going to start moving stops. 181, at least on a piece. Let's see what happens here if we start resisting this low volume. I would like for us just to shoot through it and then us to resist it on the other side. That would be ideal. I just smudged the shit out of my glasses. Oh my god. All right, stop at break even for all of it. Again, because we're thinking this is more of a scalp move than anything, right? I want to get rid of a piece at 192. And then I want to get rid of another piece at 197. So full stop at 184.50, just above our average entry. Sold a piece at 192. There's no large transactions yet this morning, which is kind of crazy. Other than the one buy at 194 3/4. But again, Monday, no economic news releases. Very slow news flow. All right, so we got a piece out. Rest of the stop at one, probably protected by that low volume area. I would say 189. Sell the next piece at 197. So we accumulated a long down in this area here between 185 and kind of 183 based off the order flow, based off it being between 170 and 180. I'm going to trail this stop aggressively because this, again, is more of a scalp trade than anything. I don't think we're doing some sort of range breakout. I just thought that if I was going to scalp, 180s to 170s was the best area to do it from. Okay, 194. Yeah, we'll stop it at 194. So I listed it at 197 because this was pretty strong going up into this area. I potentially thought you could just run the highs real quick, but yeah, I should have probably just tried to get it out at 197. All right, so fully out now. Good trade, great trade. Good start to the week. So now let's see what the market wants to potentially do. And this, oh my god, the smudge is just getting worse. Pardon me. I mean, I just cleaned my glasses before I sat down this morning. Now, if you are bullish and you are thinking that this is some sort of trend situation, which I'm not saying it is because it's Monday, you just now had no large buy at 195. You want to see this price resistance at this low volume area because we quickly passed through it. Right now, you're going to look for resistance to this 190 for runs of 198. That's another scalped opportunity here. But we're out of our long. It was a very good long. We had a very good idea of what we thought markets were going to do this morning, and they kind of just did exactly what we did, and we loaded up on a half position when it did it. I like the full positions for the trend type moves, not for the scalp type moves, and this was a scalp type move. Long at 185 to 183, sell out at 192 and 194. We wanted 197, didn't get it on the initial swing. Excuse me. So again, you had that one large buy at 195. Right back at the POC. The top of this distribution is pretty clean. It looks cleaner on the TPO chart than it does on this. But yeah, market came down exactly where we thought it would be, the top of the range from last week. And then potentially we now move higher, see if we can't find balance. The balance that we found at Friday in the afternoon A lot of the volume that formed that balance was done with market on close orders, which aren't very reliable when it comes to like auction theory structure. So you have to discount the fact that it was just forced liquidity and not voluntary. But again, buyer absorption here in 190s. All right, this lends credence to the thesis that you potentially could break this range and start moving a little bit higher. But I don't think it's like a trend type move. I really don't. I mean, maybe the bulls sneak it in today and try to catch the bears a little off guard and just start the trend early this week. And because last week it was pretty much a balanced range for the entire week. If you look at the volume distribution from last week, it's fairly balanced. And when you had those tests lower, I mean, your default, I think, for as of now, should just be bullish and look for retracements that you can get long at. I don't think this is a seller environment. I don't think you're following the flow of the market right now. So the volume and the flow here at 195 is a little mixed. It's bullish down at 193, but at 195 here, it's a little mixed. It's trying. If we get a substantive move down into 192.91, that gets quickly rejected, you see more absorption on behalf of buyers, I would buy that dip. But we're not selling anything today. I don't, even if I suspect this is going to be very much a balanced range today, it could be in Monday. Just I would not try to mean revert this on the sell side, because then you would just be out of alignment with the longer term order flow and what auction theory is kind of telling you. So the volume here is still kind of mixed at 195, 196. There's both buyers and sellers here. Right, the market could just balance here right above last week's range and then use this as a launching point for the rest of the week. So that's something to keep in mind as we go through the remainder of the week. I don't know what major headlines are coming out this week in terms of economic releases. I'm actually going to look real quick, but also be mindful of that we're looking at this 192, 191 region for a quick rejection with volume for another little maybe scalp up to 198 or something. But you'd want to get in at a pretty low price. Like getting in at 194, scalping to 198 is just, oh. And I probably would have liked it to go just a little lower, just for entry, not in terms of bullish order flow. Yeah, Faye. Gosh darn it. So the rest of the week, let's see. Tuesday, consumer confidence numbers at 10. That's not that big of a deal. Oh, Fed funds this week at 2 o'clock on Wednesday. All right. That can make for some pretty. Oh, and then we got Bank of England on Thursday. That's good. And then Friday, just PMI. So Thursday will be super volatile. Friday will probably be super volatile. And usually on weeks, I've heard that on weeks of Fed funds that like Monday and Tuesdays are just like very calm. That hasn't been my experience. Mondays and Tuesdays can be pretty volatile, even Wednesday mornings. So no large transactions outside of 955 at 195 right here. Large purchase right here. You are resistant. Yeah, I mean, if this was any other day, right? If this is a Tuesday or Thursday type day, and you're getting this kind of price action, yeah, I think you can be pretty comfortable taking longs here, so long as the volume that comes in here resists it, and then looking for the breakout. But because it's Monday, and I don't suspect that you're going to really be trending today, I mean, my God, look at the resistance to this. All the volume that comes in quickly gets you out of here. But this is the better long, and that was the long we took. This long is a little precarious, it being a Monday and potentially this just being a balanced range type day. But I mean, there's so much buyer absorption here and quick rejections out of this low volume area that I gotta believe you're at least going to extend this range. I don't think you trend it because it's Monday and it's Fed Funds Week. And we haven't had any large transactions, so that would suggest that there's not any large institutional activity. So just leave this move alone. I mean, buy 193, stop it at 191, scalp to 198, 197. That's all you can do on that, but that's not my type of trade. But at least it matches the longer term trade thesis, is that you're in a price discovery mode and are auctioning higher looking for balance. Okay, so at least we know what the news landscape now looks like for the week. It is Fed Funds Week. And I do not trade Fed Funds. I don't trade in the afternoon. I may watch it. I'll have my screens open and I'll watch it, but I do not trade it. Because I'm not able to trade after 3 p.m. If I was, I might try to trade it, but it's not my thing. Not my thing. Yep, just grinding now around the POC. We are developing some pretty good balance here around 195. You're resistant to going higher, resistant to going lower. Like the rejection down here wasn't all that clean anymore. But pretty persistent on the buyer absorption here. Sellers are trying to sell into this and they're not getting anywhere. Buyers are stepping in and buying it up. I mean, I don't want to buy anything up in the 191s, 190s, right? Because I don't think you break higher with any significant force or to any, much higher. But if there's a quick snap down and a quick rejection on volume, like sellers come in and really try to push it down and they get nowhere, I would absolutely get in long again. But without any major news releases, without any major economic releases today, I mean, institutionally, like no one is getting involved here. Right. And so if they're not willing to move markets, we have no one to piggyback on. Because that's all we're doing is piggybacking off other people's moves. And to have absorption around the POC can also be a little bit misleading. This is an area of great liquidity. And so lots of limo orders will just come in right above and right below the market. Anytime there's a quick injection of volume, my eyes quickly go towards the large orders and then quickly towards the news to see if anything drove that influx of volume. Doesn't look like there was anything. Like you can be long here. It's just a little more of a precarious long. The probabilities aren't huge on your side. Right? You're just looking for a slight range extension. You'd probably be buying like 192s, 193s, and then selling 200s. But that's just the way I see it at the moment. Based off the way this flow is going, the way the longer term auctions are playing out, the way today's auction is played out. I mean, this was a very quick rejection. Oh shoot, my kid's school's calling. All right, my apologies. That was one of my son's speech pathologists calling to schedule a follow-up meeting. So you've now drifted lower. Yeah, like this drift lower here into this 190s, like you was suspected, like if you were really bullish, right? You had this bullish absorption here in 192s, and then you came below it. Didn't really get that much absorption. The volume that's coming in is kind of pushing you out, but I would have suspected the volume to be more down here to lift you out. And also the fact that after these quick rejections, you went down even lower than these rejected levels. This doesn't scream bullish retracement to me. Right, this screams more of let's now fill in all this low volume area here and just finish the balance for the day. All right, like I almost get the impression that you're now going to resist this 194 POC, right? The last volume that came in here pushed price down. I would suspect that may happen again. Let's see what happens when we get back up here. But yeah, again, very normalized shape here. All right, see that volume that came in at 195, push price down again. Yeah, there's some bearish flow right here, but this isn't shortable. Even though you're kind of breaking the buyer divergence here, right? Buyers were trying to hold this 192, and now you're getting sellers right above that, and you broke it a little bit. But like, if you think about it in this way, if you sell the POC, right, and your stop is up here at like 199, what's your target for the short? Right? All this flow down here is bullish, right? You come anywhere near 182, you're probably going to get some resistance. Right. So maybe you're targeting that again. But if the bulls are serious about this, right, this is some heavy positive order flow right here. Like you would suspect anything out of value is going to be bullish. So if you're selling this at 194, are you targeting just outside of value here? Where's your target? Because the farther you get down here, the worse things get for you if you're short. And again, I'm not really entertaining even the ideas of shorts this week because I do think that we are in a price discovery mode and we are searching for balance higher above yesterday's ranges, right? When the top of those ranges are 170 to 180. So anything that comes down here and gets quickly absorbed and quickly resisted, I am scalping it again. I don't think sellers are serious about trying to sell us and break 180s and 170s. I don't see it. I think they're responding, right? I think this is a liquidity response up here at 195s. I don't think this is them taking short positions in hopes that they can break the top of last week's range. That just seems like a tall order, especially for a Monday. Right? You got close to making it towards value, out of value, but just quickly rejected away. I want a more earnest attempt to break value. Make a strong, earnest attempt to break this value range, and it gets quickly rejected on volume, we'll scalp it again. But that's the only scenario I entertain a trade right now. It's the only one. I don't like coming up to the POC and then trying to get long at 191. I don't like that trade. We played a little too loose and easy with this low volume area at 191. I suspect that is gonna potentially get filled in later today. I try to tell myself don't get predictive with the shapes of distributions for the days ahead of time and just use them for levels to trade. But when it's like Monday, you don't see any large order flow here, right? Since this open this morning, we've had 1, 2, 3, 4 large transactions. That is it. In the first 45 minutes, that's the amount of large transactions we've had. And the last one was a buyer at 192. And then before that was a seller at 190. That seller got trapped at 190. He's trying to get his money back. So let's see what happens when we make a push here, potentially out of value. See if volume comes in heavy and pushes you right back. I don't want to get in the long position at 190. I would like it to be somewhere down here or get in at 189 on the resistance of like 186 or something, right? Confirm that we have the resistance to 186 and then get long right as we're coming back into value. That would be ideal. I don't want to see a bunch of resistance right here, right at the value line, and then us get long at like 191. Like there can be too much chop around here that can easily come down here and like hit your stop at like 187s. But I would like a quick, heavy volume move that really attempts to break value and then just gets quickly rejected. Quick rejection, I think, is the name of that game. But let's just see what develops here. We've already got one good win under our belt. It's not going to stop us from taking other trades. It's just like this is so borderline here. This is so borderline. Like if you had this look in distribution right here, this 1 minute distribution, if it had looked like that down here, 187s, 186s, I'd probably be all over it. But if we're really only planning to do a scalp trade, which this isn't a hopes for a trend breakout. This is only a scalp trade. We need to get a good entry. When things are trending and just running wild, you don't have to be as stringent on your entry. But when you're just looking for a quick scalp up to a very specific point, you need to get far away from that point for better risk to reward metrics. Yeah, okay. Make sure I'm muting my microphone. And just see how you're not very quickly rejecting this out of value area. Like you're just kind of, yeah, you're going to break down a little bit. All right. We spent a little too much time here. This wasn't a quick rejection out of this. The volume that came in here held down price. The volume came in here didn't really lift the price all that much. Same here. Volume came in, good absorption here. In terms of like lifting price out, it didn't do it yet. So there was an earnest attempt on behalf of sellers. Like that's nothing to sneeze at. That's a pretty big absorption print right there. All right, you do that type of move again down here to 186 is quickly rejecting, come back up into this range. Let's get long. We're going to be patient for it because this is a scalped type environment. It's Monday. You've got a pretty balanced distribution. Absorption on both sides has been broken. And you get bullish flow followed by the bearish flow, back to the bullish flow. I don't want to scalp shorts. I want to scalp longs, just so we're matching our longer term thesis. Yeah, we're just rotating back and forth right at the value area low. That's not good for that value area low. That's not the area that's really holding. So it's not really bullish by any stretch of the imagination. So no news. Just reading up on some of the news real quick. Mm. Yeah, not getting long here. Even though you're at the value area low, these overlapping rotations, you have good absorption here, but these overlapping rotations you didn't quickly reject. This isn't something you're interested in. Not interested in at all. And you're starting to get a little resistant to this low volume area at 191. That's not good if you're a bull. Yeah, order flow here is fairly mixed. It's keeping price here. It's not pushing it away. It's good area liquidity, it seems like. And that's a good amount of volume to come in and just really push things down. Yeah, now like it becomes precarious for even the scenario that we were talking about a few minutes ago. Come down to this 186s and 187s on a test. And then now because you have to break the 190s just to get back to the point of control, and there, we know there's resistance above there too. So I mean, we need a fairly overwhelming bullish order flow case to scalp long this now, just because we have such heavy rotations here at the value area low, and the volume that's coming in right at the value area low is suppressing price. But like, you don't want just a small dip outside this range that gets rejected, like exactly that. You want a significant test that gets rejected. You don't want to just one tick beyond. Is anyone there? No, you really want to try to drive things lower, and it gets rejected. Right, we're resistant to this upper range here. You can kind of see where the lower bounds of this upper range is, and it's right at this low volume area. And you're now being resistant to coming back into this range. You're quickly rejecting coming back into this range, and you're not quickly rejecting out of value. Now, it could easily just snap back in here into this range, but as of this moment, the sellers are defending you getting back into this range. Now you get lower seller absorption at a level where you previously had buyer absorption. And that's a pretty heavy print. Almost 300 contracts absorbed. Pretty heavy. Now, who knows? Maybe we get super lucky and the market wants to come back down into a 180, 170 range again. That would be ideal. Because that becomes like a load up range. But just flirting around here with the value area low and defending this low volume ledge here at 188, it's not something we're really interested in. So we're spending a lot of time here in order flow. This is time acceptance. These overlapping rotations, just going back and forth. Like, the market is very comfortable here. You don't want to trade out of this range. You want the market to test outside this range and then potentially look to take a trade. Buyers absorbing still. You're struggling to get outside the value area low for sure and hang there. I mean, is anything even close outside? Once, twice? Make it back up towards the POC. Wow. Wow. Yeah, they're fighting right here. They're fighting. We might fill in this area around 191 now, just because buyers are present at 188 and below, and you see sellers present here in the low 190s. They might just fight back and forth and fill in the volume at 191. But nothing on the institution side since 11 minutes after 10. They're just not positioning or trending today. This is just range scalp trades today only. Trade the environment you are given. And so we've already taken one scalp from the lows, 185 down to 183. Got out near the POC at 193. Yeah, you're just getting a lot of back and forth and overlap here. I mean, this is what you want if you're a longer term bull. Us just bouncing right above last week's range. Very resistant to the POC. Like, give me a good, strong, hard, earnest attempt to break all of this that gets quickly rejected. That's a long. All right, we do have a bias today. On most days, we don't have a bias, but today we do have a bias. I'm going to still look for longs at 180 to 170 at the top of last week's range. So again, just struggling to make it out of value. All right, so that's good if you're a bull, struggling to make it out of value, but in terms of giving us an entry, that's not ideal. This is too short of a range, really, to go from 190 to 196. Because even 196 is hopeful. Seller, ooh, 531 contracts at 191. Just sold. I'm going to go use the restroom real quick because this market's not going anywhere. The chop continues. Choppity chop, chop, chop. Yep, but a boring Monday for sure. Boring Monday. Just balancing in the range. But good trading is boring trading, folks. If this market excites you, you're doing something wrong. You're trying to play every tick or something. And strong absorption numbers here. I mean, there is potentially a lower probability scalp right here at this value area low, and then be hopeful it gets up to 196 and eventually breaks the POC. But like, you kind of need several big things to happen. Like, I don't want to take a scalp trade that relies on something pretty big happening, which would be a break of this heavily absorbed POC. Because you're not just scalping from 190 to 193, because then your stop is like, what, 188? So let's see if we can't get this ideal scenario that we're looking for, which is a heavy attempt to push out a value that gets quickly rejected. So heavy sellers at 188. All right, this is kind of what I'm talking about. A heavy sell, trying to take you out of value, really try to break it down, and then just not being able to do so. All right, let's see if we can absorb all these sellers. And it's pretty good size at 188 right here. I mean, not very quickly rejecting this, right? You're kind of just rotating now down here. Yeah, that's not really what you were looking for. So that was the move that we were looking for, right? Heavy sellers coming in, but we wanted it to get absorbed and quickly rejected. Now the question becomes, if this now finishes above, do you get long? I don't think you do. Right? I really wanted buyers to step in here. And they didn't very quickly. Right? And he broke this absorption. This is where the absorption was. And the seller was able to break it. Like some of their order got absorbed. 188, 240 contracts got absorbed. It didn't tick price down. So let's see what happens when we get down towards the lows of the distribution. I don't like the fact that we've resisted the POC. You tried to resist the value area low and you didn't do it. Now heavy volumes come in and pushed you outside of value. So that's pretty much the landscape for the day right here. You know, you're absorbing lower. Buyers are coming in. They are absorbing, but we're now absorbing at lower prices. And sellers are defending the rotations back into this range. So no long scalp at the moment. I need to see things with the flow change pretty significantly here. Yeah, so leaving it alone for now. I got to imagine if sellers are serious, you're now going to resist this. This prior area of buyer absorption, this value area low, this is a pretty significant point right now. If you come up here and you resist this, you're definitely probably going to test the lows. We won't trade it because I think this is a great area to get long. But I would think, just based off structure and what's happening here, you would now be resistant to this area. If you're not resistant to this area, you come back here into this range, then do another test that gets resisted, and then come back. That's a long. But this isn't a long. This wasn't a quick rejection here. Say the volume that's now coming in at 188 is pushing you down. All right, prior areas of absorption can become resistance because it represents an area where buyers or sellers gave up. And then as price comes back, they get all hopeful and then they bail. Another large seller at 186. So large sellers have been selling from 191 down to 186. They don't seem to be getting very far. Yeah, I don't know if sellers are going to be able to hold it down. There's pretty good absorption numbers. And buyers are willing to meet you here. All right, this is a balanced range for sure. The balanced Monday, if I ever saw one. We just need to wait for a higher probability scalp to take here. The one we got earlier this morning was a good one. But all opportunities that have happened since then have been much lower probabilities. So that's pretty bullish, right? You tried to break, you did break this range, but you were unable to hold outside of it. Now you're coming right back into this rotational range here. If you come back up in here, kind of rotate around, make another good attempt to get out of value that gets rejected, scalp it. But you got to get above 190 on the other side and then test it from the high side. It's the only way that works. Yeah, see, they're still present there at 190. Oh, how you like them apples, folks? How you like them apples? Just out of fucking nowhere. So wait a second to see what the news headline or whatever the fuck that just was. Because that was probably something. Jeez Louise. I still don't see anything on financial juice. Make sure check CNN real quick. Sometimes CNN's good at the breaking news. Mm, I don't see any breaking news or anything. Buyer bought at 191 and a quarter. All the sellers now from 191 and below are now underwater. See what happens when you come down and test the high side of this range, right? Because if you're a large seller, as this price comes down, you're going to hope to get back out at even. So you might see a flurry of buy activity down here at the top of this range. I still don't see any major headlines. So I have no idea what caused that major influx right there. Might find out in like 5 minutes. That's a pretty big snap, though, for sure. So let's see if you become resistant to the top of this range, or possibly. I think you're going to become resistant here. All right, this seems like a large retracement if you're bullish to get back down to the value area low based off this move. All the volume that came in was right here, and a lot of volume came up here. Not a lot of volume in the middle. I still don't see anything. Refresh. Nothing. Nothing. Well, now you're back in the area right at the POC in balance. And if you're looking for scalp trades, this is not the area that you do it from. Large buyer was at 191 and a quarter. I mean, maybe that's the headline, but I don't think that headline would move markets. Something about security services in Israel. There's a rift between two people or something. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure the rest of the market doesn't know, so I don't think that was the headline. Doesn't really matter. Follow the flow. Or a bunch of volume comes in here. All right, we're in the top of that range. Where would our stop be? It's thought provoking. I don't want to trade here at the POC. We're too high for a scalp, I think. All right, we're targeting maybe 197, 198s on a scalp. I would like 191s. Right, I'd be comfortable with a stop at like 187. I'm just not very comfortable with a 193 entry. Right, because price can easily come down here. Easily. Let's see if this volume that comes in here starts to outweigh this volume. and see how heavy the rejection here comes. Like if it rejects heavy and we quickly snap back to POC, like I almost like can't help myself but want to put something on. Yeah, no. That sealed that deal. Yeah, so now we're really just looking for a move back outside value. Right, like 'cause you're getting slower here, but this isn't a quick rejection off the top of this prior range. You didn't quickly come down, test it, and quickly snap back. You're just kind of we're testing it. Hello, anyone here? The overlapped rotations right above the previous range is not good. It's not a sell. It's not a buy. Just leave it alone. Still haven't seen anything that would have caused that. Could be nothing. It's volume that comes in at the low volume area, still suppressing price. Volume coming in at 190s, lifting price a little bit, but that's not significant. It's not a huge lift. Not very hard resistance. Oh, stretchy. Yeah. Boring Mondays, folks. Boring Mondays. But this is constructive towards our longer term bullish thesis. All right. Markets are just auctioning higher, trying to find balance. You're finding pretty good balance here. You balanced here Friday afternoon, and now you're balancing all day today. It's pretty good. You can use this as a launch point for bullish advances later in the week if you're so inclined. Because shorting from this area now becomes really precarious because you have a balance range now forming around 190 to 195. And then you previously had a balance range between 160 and 150 ish. So if you do short this, how are you shorting it to? Are you going to short through a bunch of balanced ranges? Not likely. And this rejection near the value area low is nothing. Volume that's coming in is barely lifting price. Absorption on the buy side is happening at lower prices, not higher prices. Yeah, no long, no short, no nothing. Just hanging around the POC. And see what happens in like the next 10 minutes. But I suspect like this is what it's going to be like for the remainder of this morning session. It's just some chop back and forth around the POC. You drift higher, you drift lower. That's it. Mm. Volume comes in right at the POC, presses price a little bit. And I feel like I should be taking this opportunity to work on my baseball roster. Right, because there's no trade here. There's absolutely no trade here. I'm just sitting here, our arms crossed, squeeze ball in hand. Iran's foreign minister, Trump is requesting negotiations because the U.S. has not achieved any of its objectives. Yeah, there might be truth to that statement. You might have gotten in over their heads a little bit. Mm-hmm. Yeah, only if we get a quick test lower and a quick rejection of the area outside of value, below the value area low, only then do I consider a scalp long. This is not the area within value, and this close to the POC is not a good scalping opportunity. Probabilities are greatly reduced. And plus, you have so much resistance to this POC. Right, you barely make it above it, and then it gets pushed back down. All the volume comes in at the POC. You get resistance, so you made a quick break of it off whatever this was. Then it gets quickly shot back down. Volume comes in back at the POC again and pushes you back down. No, thank you. Oops. Whole lot of chop within value, folks. Yeah, I think we'll cut the stream in about 3 minutes, 10 minutes early today. We've already had one good scalp trade today. Like, I don't think there's any reason to hang out for an additional 10 minutes on hopes that we get the one and only scenario in which we're entertaining a trade, which is a quick snap down and a quick rejection. That's the only scenario in which we're entertaining another scalp long. We're not scalping along here at 190 when there's so much resistance to this POC at just at 195. Because if you scalp long at 190, your stop has to be like 188 to justify this risk to reward here. 2 points down for 5 points up. It's okay. But 2 points in ES gets quickly stopped. It's good to be bored when trading. If you're bored when trading, that means you're probably doing something right. Another buyer just came in at 193 3/4. The last buyer was at 191 1/4. Yeah, it's probably going to mark the swing high. Iran proposed reopening the Strait of Hormuz. The status of key U.S. demands is unclear. CNN cites a source. Cool story, bro. Cool story, bro. Yeah, you're not going anywhere, market. You're just staying within this range. It's balancing. It's Monday. It's Fed week. Boring markets. Boring day. Yeah, I think we'll cut it early so I can eat my lunch early and start working on my baseball roster for tomorrow. Yeah, good training. Way to start a week. Good start to the week. Well, let's finish it strong now. Let's keep it going. Yeah, this market's not going to give us what we're looking for probably within the next 10 minutes. I'll hit myself if it does, but I really don't think it does. But anyway, if you joined in, thank you for joining in. Happy Monday. I hope the weather is nice for you as it is for us here in Michigan. God bless you, and I hope to see you bright and early tomorrow morning just before 9:30. All right, thanks.